We are live. Okay. Looks like we are live now. Hi guys. We this this is the second attempt at actually an introduction to Linux. Uh, we are joined by Archit, Chinmay, Lakshan, Tarun. The plan for this thing is that we're going. I am going to go on a monologue about Linux for the next 10-15 minutes, I guess, and then people who are here as guests can ask questions, and we'll have a small group discussion going forward. Cool. So the first question that should come to minds of people when they hear about Linux for the first time would be, well, what is it, right? So what is Linux? Technically speaking, it is just the kernel. Lakshya, could you mute your microphone? Thanks. So technically speaking, Linux is just the kernel. And if you're new to operating systems, well, kernel might not make any sense to you. So in simple terms, if we say the kernel is the central part of the operating system, okay? It's the first program that gets loaded into memory when your computer boots up. And well, the kernel is the thing that in essence is the operating system, right? The utilities, the system programs are built around the kernel, okay? So let's suffice it to say for now that it's the first program that loads into your computer system when it boots. So Linux is essentially the kernel. However, over the course of last 15-20 years, it has, so the term Linux has been applied to a wide range of operating systems which use the kernel and are built on top of it. So when you say I'm using Linux, it essentially means that you are using one of the operating systems based on Linux, the Linux kernel. Okay, so one of the crucial, one of the interesting facts about Linux is that it is the most popular and most famous open source project that is out there. It has got more than 2 million lines of code, if I'm not wrong, but feel free to check the facts out. But given the given its popularity and success as an open source project, this attribute of Linux, I mean, before Linux came along, there was the open source culture, but Linux is something that defined it, that brought it mainstream. As in, there were, of course, a lot of programmers, hackers, and people who used to promote open source. But if there is one thing that made it come into the lives of common people, that would be the Linux kernel project. Because before, so if we go into what do you say, a little bit into history. So open source culture was started by Richard Stallman in mid 1980s, but it was limited to hackers, right? People who were programmers or computer scientists and wanted to get into the code and do stuff with it. But that's where it was limited in those days. What made it what happened was that Linux became so popular, and today, as we all know, that it's running everywhere, right? It's running on my web server, it's running on desktops, it's running on all of these Android phones. So, I mean, the popularity of open source and like the open source culture also, we owe it to the Linux project. So some trivia about it, right? So Linux was, the Linux project was started by Linus Torvalds in 1991, close to the end of August. It was 25th August, if I'm not wrong. And ever since then, I mean, it is not, nobody's looked back, and it has been growing multifolds. So he was just working on, if we go into a little bit of story, he was just working on a fun project. He was trying to learn how and what operating systems are, right? And he went into a fun project. He just wanted to do some tinkering. And sitting in his, dorm, sitting in his house, sitting in his bedroom, he started playing with his computer, PDP-11, I thought it was. And a couple of months later, he released this small project called Linux, and he said to the world that this is something just for fun, probably wouldn't be anything big. It's open source, do whatever. So he told the world, do whatever you would like to do with it, it's open source. And the entire world jumped on it. Why did that happen? Because, so there was a reason why this happened, that it became so famous. Because the GNU project, going back, so the project that Richard Stallman had started to promote the free and open source movement, the GNU project, that had almost everything, right? It had the text editor, it had the compilers and everything that was needed to assist computing. What it lacked was a kernel. The kernel project that those people were working on was called GNU Hurd, HURD, but it was far from completion. And when Linux came along, people jumped on this opportunity and started integrating Linux into their tool chains and into their projects. And so slowly and steadily it became, gradually it became more and more popular, and today we have something that is running everywhere. Okay, so now that we have dealt with who and what Linux is, the question is, the next question that you probably would ask is, why should you be interested in Linux, right? So this is something that we should always be asking ourselves, like, why should we get into something, right? That's something that we should ask ourselves whenever we start a project or venture into venture into anything. That's something, what is it for me? Why should I do this? So why should you personally be interested in Linux? I'm assuming that most of the people who are probably tuned in are students. So I'll try and tune the answer towards that. First and foremost, it's open source. So what does it mean if it is open source? The fact is that literally the source code is open and available for anyone and everyone to see, use, modify. But most of us, being end users, right, the people who are just going to, use it, not ever get under the hood, it probably, on the face of it, probably doesn't mean much. But culturally, it's very important, because since it is open source, if you want to get into the basics of operating systems, right, given that most of us, most of the people who are probably watching this are computer science engineers, are going to be computer science engineers. So if you want to get into the basics and see how things are working under the hood, right? So Linux or any open source project would be good place to start, because you can know about things by reading books and Wikipedia and anywhere, but to try and really understand how something is working, looking at actual code is the thing that is going to help you. Reading the source code is the only way to learn, only way to understand why and how things are working under the hood. So, that's where open source helps. And so, but for us, the normal end users, Linux-based operating systems being open source also means that the source code is available for free, and also the end product, in most of the cases, is freely available for download and use and sharing. So compared to the proprietary counterparts, what we can do is get those operating systems for free, try them out, use them without having to pay licensing fees. So if you buy any other, let's just name it. If you buy Windows, even if it comes bundled with your computer, you do have to pay the licensing fee. And well, students usually do not have a thick, deep pockets to pay licensing fees for such softwares. So yeah, that in itself is one of the major advantages of using an open source operating system. Next advantage is that since it is open source and the source code is available for, well, everyone to see, what happens as a result is that it becomes more and more secure. Why? Because there are there are many contributors, right? So if any bug or a security loophole comes into the picture, people who are working on that source code are readily able to fix those bugs and release the software back, because it's not a team, it's not a limited team of 200 or 1,000 or 500, 5,000 people. It's actually a worldwide network of developers who are regularly contributing to the kernel, to the projects. So as a result, the end product is much more sturdy and secure compared to its closed source counterparts. Well, those are some of the reasons why you, me, anyone should probably be interested in an open source operating system. Now, moving on to how would you do that? Well, one of the first thing would be search the internet for Linux, right? And download one of the distros, right? So in order to let me just clear another time terminology. So since Linux is just the kernel, right? So there are many people who have built operating systems around it, many groups of people. So one of them, for let's say, is Ubuntu. Another is Debian, another is Red Hat, Fedora, OpenSUSE. There are innumerable. You can go to websites like distrowatch.com. I'll do something. I'll put all of these links that I'm talking about in the description of this video later on. Share a note with you. So distrowatch.com is one of the websites. You can go and check it out. There are many innumerable distros. So these operating systems that people build are on the Linux kernel are called distributions, or in short, distros. So there's a website called DistroWatch, which lists out all of these distros and gives you links to where you can go and download and try them out. So one of the things that people do when they start with Linux is that they go distro hopping. That you download a distro, install, try it out, see whether you like it or not, and then move on to the next one. So I had probably hopped over 8 or 10 distributions before I settled on one that I liked most and stuck around on it. But it was fun in the beginning days. Distro hopping is something that you can do while you are in college, because well, after you start working and there are deadlines, it becomes a little difficult to have to set up everything afresh on your computer and like, well, if you format your system and come back and you have to, if you start doing that every week, well, delivering work would be painful and would probably never happen. So yeah, I would like to go back and do that. But nevertheless, coming back to the point. So how do you start? You just go Google or DuckDuckGo, or use whatever search engine you have. Just go to these websites and download your favorite one. Whatever looks good, works for you, go ahead, download, install, try it out, and see how comfortable you are with it. And to sort of reiterate, it's not difficult these days, right? It used to be very, very tough back. Even 10 years ago, installing and using Linux used to be like one of a chore, kind of a chore, actually, big task to complete, because kuch bhi kar lo. No matter how hard you try, there would be some driver or some component of the operating system which would not work the way you wanted it to. Even today, there are some hardwares which don't work right out of the box, but most of the things do. So, for example, when I started doing this I had bought a new Dell computer and it was not compatible with the graphics driver was not compatible with the distros and the sort of drivers which were there at that point in time. So as a result, I had to try out too many distros. But after going through a few cycles, I realized that it was not the graphics driver, but the thing was that the display was being detected as a secondary thing. So when I connected an external monitor, it worked right, it worked fine, but without the external display, the thing was not working. So, well, asked around on forums, asked around in Linux user groups, and I was able to figure out. I was able to get the required help and make it work. It was fun. So how do you go about doing this? Then download, install, try it out. The next thing would be like, you would be worried, what are you going to do with, how are you going to go about your day-to-day activities, which you are probably very comfortable doing it on Windows or Mac or whatever you're using. So there are, almost everything that you do on your computer, you definitely would be able to do on your Linux machine as well, right? You want to watch movies, VLC is available. You want to do document editing, you've got OpenOffice. Or you want to do spreadsheets, you've got, again, OpenOffice is an entire suite which will let you do the same things. However, I would not advise using document editing softwares. I personally prefer LaTeX for editing and making documents, but that's a topic for another broadcast, I suppose. So almost everything that you want to do, text editors or IDEs for programming, you've got almost you've almost all your needs are covered, and you can always ask around on mailing lists and forums if there is a special need that for which you're not able to find a particular software. But let me assure you that I haven't faced such a bottleneck yet. There is a task is not happening because I'm stuck on Linux. I need to move to another operating system to get that done. That has very rarely happened. Right? And nothing in my immediate memory. No, can't think of anyone. Nonetheless, so to sum it up, so what can you do? You can first of all go to Wikipedia, read up the articles on Linux kernel, try to find out about a few distros. Even if you do not go deep into those articles, at least read the first paragraph. This is something that I personally follow. I go through at least the first paragraph, the introduction part of Wikipedia, because that gives me enough. That gives me enough general knowledge about everything that I need to know. So to get comfortable, of course, at least you should read the entire article about Linux on Wikipedia, but first paragraph would suffice. Then definitely go and check out some distributions on distrowatch.com. The ones that I had tried were Ubuntu, Fedora, OpenSUSE, Mandriva. Mandriva probably is not available in these days. Mandrake, couple of those, couple of more, CentOS, etc. These days, I am primarily using Linux only on my servers that I'm running. My web applications and managing web applications on. They are mostly running Ubuntu and CentOS, and that's about it. Another very good resource is tldp.org. That stands for the Linux Documentation Project, and that would give you a very comprehensive idea about how you go about using the operating system and its nitty-gritties in general, in very layman terms. So that is another good resource. I have found a lot of help there. What else? Well, once you start using Linux, one of the most important skill that anyone could acquire is to get comfortable with the command line, whether be it bash shell or zsh or whichever terminal. So what the aim of this exercise is that you become as comfortable as you can with the command line tool. So there would be so whatever distro you install, there would be a utility called terminal, wherein you would be able to like make the computer do things based on, using commands or shell scripts. So what happens as a process is that now you're not dependent on the graphical user interface of the system, and you can do much more, or you can make the computer do much more in very less time. So this is one of the very crucial things and very important skill sets for people who want to become power users of the computer, or if you want to pursue a career as a developer or as anybody who has to, get more out of a computer than just what the graphical user interface facilitates you to do. Then command line is the go-to tool, and it basically empowers the user to, because if you try to understand this even in layman terms, there is only so much space on the screen, right? There is only so many buttons and gestures and things you can stuff on the display that you've got. But when it comes to command line, well, possibilities are endless. So, and there are so you can also develop your own tools or write your own scripts for automating and making your life easy in simple terms. Another thing would be so people who are learning to program, another thing would be to go ahead and try to write your programs in a text editor and use the interpreter or the compiler on the shell, on the command line, and make it and try and make it work. Doing this will actually compel you or compel your subconscious mind to understand what is going on. Because, let's be frank, just pressing the button or the shortcut Control F9 for compiling and running your programs doesn't give you or doesn't make you familiar with the underlying things, right? What is going on behind the scene when you say compile. But using the commands to actually make everything happen, right? I don't know about you, but it helped me create a mind map of the things that I needed to understand and just enhance my knowledge. So yeah, that's about it. Resources where you can go and learn. Number one, your internet is your friend. Use Wikipedia, YouTube, Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever, and try to know more about it. Secondly, there are Linux user groups in almost every city and every educational institute. If there isn't one in your college, start one. Few that I am aware of, at least in the Delhi NCR region, are there is one in IIT Delhi. It's called IIT DLUG. There's one in JP Institute. There is one in BVP, Bharati Vidyapeeth, LUG. There is one in Jamia, JMI LUG. There is another in, since this one is for ASET. So ASET has got one called ALiAS. So there is one in almost every educational institution. There are Linux user groups on city levels as well. So Mumbai has one, Hyderabad has one, Chennai has one, Delhi has one. So if you're stuck somewhere and you're not able to find answers on Stack Overflow or forums or mailing lists, then going to the meetups of one of these Linux user groups would definitely help you, because in-person communication is always better, there are problems that you're probably not able to explain or reproduce or communicate well over chat or forum, but showing it to people will definitely get you the help that you need. So yeah, Linux user groups, attend the meetups, use the internet, it's your friend. And yeah, one of the most important tools should be IRC. That stands for Internet Relay Chat. It's one of the oldest tools that people use for communicating. And it's one of the things that helped me boot up my skills. As in, so when I started, when I started learning Linux and programming in general, hanging out on those on IRC channels was one of the ways for me to get help, in the sense that, and there was always somebody to help me out. So yeah, internet, people, and Wikipedia. So I guess I'm done with my monologue. Let's see if people have questions. Archit and Tarun are here on the line. Archit, Tarun, do you have questions? Shyam? Or shall we stop the broadcast now? Yeah.
Hello भैया.
हाँ.
So comments में काफी सारे क्वेश्चन आए हैं, तो आप उनको एक बार देख लेंगे प्लीज.
Okay. Comments में questions. I see where the comments are.
आप एक काम करो, अपना मोबाइल के अंदर खोल लो अलग से. मैं आपको लिंक भेज देता हूँ.
Fine. Yeah, please send it to me.
ये लिंक भेज दिया आपको. Okay, wait. आया भी आपके पास?
आया. Opening it. Hold on. Where are the comments? I don't see the comments. Where are the comments? I know. Okay, yeah, I probably see. Okay. Hi, Shyam, could you help out with the questions? As in,
हाँ भैया. So एक क्वेश्चन ये है कि लिनक्स, मैंने वहाँ मेंशन कर दिया था कि सब लोग पूछ रहे थे कि मैं लिनक्स क्यों यूज करूँ, तो मैंने उन्होंने कहा लिनक्स इज मोर सिक्योर. So किसी ने कहा कि ऐसे एक्सप्लेन करो, so आप वो एक्सप्लेन करोगे प्लीज?
Okay. Right. So one of the primary theories is I think I briefly touched upon it in the monologue as well. But so what do you, let's say, so security loopholes are essentially bugs in the software, right? So mistakes or errors that have been left around, and which people can exploit, which malicious software can exploit to gain access or do something nasty on your computer, right? So I mean, it's not to say that anything else is insecure. However, an open source software is more secure. Why? Because one of the primary things is that there are more eyes looking at the software, right? Because any closed source software would have a team of limited people working on it, right? Maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe 1,000. But well, when you have an unlimited number of people who are continuously collaborating and working on the kernel and associated softwares and related utilities, bug is very difficult. It is very difficult for a bug to go unnoticed, right? So essentially, I mean, as a result, what happens is, well, you have less bugs, so you have less security loopholes. So ultimately, you have a more sturdy piece of software, I guess.
एक मिनट, एक और क्वेश्चन आया है कि एक मिनट मैं आपको भेजता हूँ. क्वेश्चन ये है, आप अपने टेलीग्राम में प्लीज हैक कीजिए. मैंने क्वेश्चन भेजे हैं, 2 क्वेश्चन भेजे हैं.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for this. how to do basic operations in Linux. As you're saying, it does ease the things. Basic operations. Could you clarify what basic operations?
उसने मेंशन नहीं किया आगे कुछ भी. नहीं, आपने ये चीज मेंशन करी थी ना, ease वाली, तो उसी को लेके आई guess question है.
So primarily when I say easy, it is easy compared to what it was 10-15 years ago, right? It's been so people have been working. I mean, it originally was developed by hackers and for being used by people who are very tech savvy, but that has been changing gradually, and today the distributions are very simple and easy to install and use, right? You do not need to know much to just get started. That is one of the fortes of a few operating systems. For example, Ubuntu has become like as simple as it can be. Installation happens in a very simple manner. I mean, in my opinion, even easier than Windows. So, well, getting started is very simple, and there are software alternatives for everything that you do. I mean, you want to listen to music, you've got, the music players come pre-installed. You want to watch movie, you've got Software Center in Ubuntu where you can download softwares from, for example, VLC, OpenOffice, etc. All of those. Most of the softwares will probably come bundled, and then you can always install more from one of the app stores. And a simple search on the web for an alternative for another software would give you a list of every option that is there. So, yes, I mean, I hope I am answering the how to do basic operations. Yeah, something else?
Bhaiya?
Yeah.
Am I audible here?
Tarun?
Am I audible here?
Yes, you are. Tell me.
Okay, so I was asking, like, if I can somehow manage to get my hands on the source code for any Linux operating system, like a Linux kernel, so yeah. I will be having the tools to create my own operating system. Is that what Linux is all about?
I mean, you would definitely, but that's not all that Linux is all about. So, I mean, ultimately, any project that can only be used by its creators is kind of pointless. So, no, that is not all. That's not the entire point of Linux. But so, of course, there have to be more end users than the people who are creating it. I mean, otherwise it would just be like our college projects, right? Which we made and only our professors used, or maybe my roommate just came and tested it once, right? So no, Linux kernel. I mean, of course you can get into it, and I mean, if you are interested in operating systems and learning the nitty-gritties of operating systems, then you should. And of course, the Linux kernel is available. I mean, just go to kernel.org and you'll be able to download the source code, and you'll also get the beginner resources to get started with the development. For example, compiling the kernel and moving on with it. And if let's say you are interested in building an operating system from scratch, then there is a project called Linux from Scratch. Just search on the internet for it, and I mean, maybe I can show you the website for this thing. Let me see if I can share the screen. Would you like to see it, or should I just move on to the next question?
Yeah, sure.
What? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Would you like to see?
I said like we can, like you show.
So you can go and see, right? Cool. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, Linux from Scratch is one of the projects where so you compile everything from scratch. Okay, I have tried, I mean, attempted it 2 times, but well, something came in the middle. But it was fun, and for the first time I was able to understand what cross-compiling means. As in, you build the tool chain which you use to compile the kernel, and slowly and steadily add on everything that is required by you to, I mean, run your computer. So yeah, pretty much, I mean, it's a fun project. It's a fun project.
Thanks.
LFS. Okay. Okay, so let's take another question. How does it benefit me as a developer, taking in mind that Windows has introduced shell in their operating system? Well, yes, Windows has introduced shell in the operating system, but let's just, of course, go either way. It's of course your personal choice, but well, I personally have a soft corner for Linux because that's how I started. That's and the community that is around it helped me a lot to expand my knowledge, learn more, or rather, the support system that is around and the community, the support system, the culture that is around built around Linux. That's something that will be missing there. Or maybe you will find another support system, but so whatever works for you, whatever floats your boat. As far as my personal opinion is concerned, so these open source communities, right? The communities which are built around open source projects, be it Linux, be it Python, be it Firefox, any of these. So these communities and the people in them, that network is very, very precious. That support that you get when you start something. I mean, in person, the support that you get in person in one of those meetups, and the friends that you make, and people you can just call in the middle of the night when you want to, I don't know, clear a doubt, fix an issue. That's priceless, and that is something. I mean, I have personally just seen in open source communities. It could be my myopic viewpoint, but that's worked for me. And being a part of these communities has got me in touch with experts whom I can bug at any time of the day. I mean, let's be honest. There is so much to know in this world that no one person, no single human being can hope to, or rather, it's probably humanly impossible to know everything, right? So having those people and having that support system helps a lot. Even in my day-to-day work, when I get stuck, there are people, there are friends that I've made in these communities whom I can call and get instant help, right? So sometimes, most of the times, I would probably bang my head until the very end. I mean, I would probably spend 2-3 hours before I give up on trying to solve a problem. But well, there are times when the delivery is due, right? When something has to be done in 2 minutes, in 3 minutes, and there are, I mean, I wouldn't say lives at stake, but probably, I mean, jobs at stake, right? So the survival of my client company is at stake. So in those situations, I definitely have to forego my ego and what do you say? Just ask for help, right? So the support system is what helps me, and that comes out of the communities based on open source software. I should use Vim, Emacs, or IDE like text editor like Sublime Works to get the most of Linux. Well, use whatever works for you. However, if you're starting, then in my opinion, using a plain text editor would be better. Why? Because IDEs do a lot of work for you. Most of them even, I mean, generate the boilerplate code. Those utilities and those tools are helpful while you're working on on a project for a client or something that for something professionally. But when you're starting to learn something, then having an IDE do half of your work is counterproductive, in a sense that, I mean, how do you understand what is happening when an automated script is doing half your work? Writing those things, I mean, even if you do it just once or maybe only through the course while you are learning stuff, that gives you an insight that is priceless. Doing things by hand the first time you're doing them. So that strengthens your basics and well, clears your concepts. So when you're learning, go for a text editor. When you are, by all means, when you are, developing a professional project in Java, well, definitely use a text editor. Definitely use an IDE and let it write most of the code, because well, Java is too verbose. But yeah, so I guess I answered that question. Moving on to the next one. So how to choose a distro? Like Kali is for pen testers, etc. So what is the best for developers? Let's not get into distro wars. Let's not get into a war over distro, but no, primarily anything that works for you, whatever gets your job done is the best one for you. So to sort of cover all bases, Ubuntu is something that will work for almost everyone. But I have, so over a course of last 6-7 years that I've been using Linux, the one that worked most for me was OpenSUSE/Fedora. I also stuck around on Ubuntu for a long time. And after using, let's say, like the 10-12 distros that I hopped over and I used for more than a month, I realized that I can get my job done on any distro. Like it's not a blocker. The distro is not a blocker. And apart from other things, it helped me boost my confidence that whatever I'm exposed to, I'll be able to get the job done. It's something like the computer language, right? The first language you learn, you think you're dependent on it. The second one you learn, it's like, okay, I know something more. But after you have written code in like 5, 10, 12 languages, you're like, meh, whatever comes my way. As long as I know what I want to do, I'll be able to do it. So yeah, whatever gets your job done. What language should I learn? The next one is, what language should I learn before going into Linux? No language. It's an operating system, right? It's not. So use it to learn the languages and the tools and computer science in general. Use Linux to do those things. You don't need to you do not need to know any computer programming language or human language. English will get the job done. Yes. Yes, we have skimmed through all the questions. Shyam, do you have more?
Hello?
Yeah.
अभी 1 minute रुको, बस questions आ रहे हैं.
Okay. So, Tarun?
Yes.
Hope it was sensible. Okay, do you have any more questions?
No, not from my side.
Not from your side. Cool.
Wait.
Okay. The command line. No. So the command line is not a language. So by default, what you will get is bash. That's called that's an acronym for born again shell. Diving a little into operating system will expose you to something called the shell, right? It's the interface between the operating system and the user. It's the most rudimentary form of user interface, the command line. So there have been many shells, so to say, C shell, Z shell, born again shell, K shell, many have been there. So bash or born again shell is the most common one, and that's what comes by default in, along with most of the Unix based or POSIX based operating systems. So, well, just get through the basics, like the ls, make directory, change directory, stuff like that will come naturally to you once you start doing things on the terminal, like text editing, opening a program, or, well, so another anecdotal story. So I used to struggle with the command line, but what happened once was when I was tinkering with something, I made the graphical user interface crash. I was using KDE based OS. I think it was OpenSUSE. So I was using the KDE based, KDE is an acronym for K desktop environment. That's one of the two famous or prominent desktop environments. One is GNOME, other is KDE. There are few called LXDE, etc. So these are the, you can say that these are little more than the themes or graphical user interfaces in Linux. So what I did was I made the GUI crash, and all I was left with, I mean, the operating system used to boot fine. I just didn't see anything graphical on my screen. It used to be a blank screen. No menus, no buttons, nothing to click. So I sort of was forced to, since I had no option, I had to learn the shell commands to get things done. So if I wanted to watch a movie, I had to launch VLC from the command line. If I wanted to increase the sound, I had to sort of, the OS sound, I had to use a command to get the job, get that done. So that was one of the best things that happened to me. So unless and until you make your computer crash and something awful to happen, you'll probably not have the incentive to learn and get over that obstacle. So, well, obstacles and hardships are what defines us. So, well, that was the motto of the story anyways. So yeah, once you start, so coming back to the question, what should I learn before I go into Linux? Well, nothing, just start using it. Whenever you get stuck at something, it'll teach you something new. So that's about it. Shyam, next question. How to break my system? That's an interesting one. Go about tinkering, man. Do nasty things. Try to dive deeper into configuration files. See how the display is configured, how menus are being displayed on your screen, how things are working. Just go exploring, tinkering. So yeah, the hacker attitude. This looks like your question, right, Shyam? This probably hasn't come from a listener. Anyways, so to sort of let me try and get an example for this. Well, it's not advisable, but let's say you want to understand how your car is working, right? Of course, you're presented with a neat interface. You've got a steering wheel, you've got a hole where you put your key and you turn the ignition on. But that just explains how you can use the car. But it doesn't, you just looking at that interface, you can't understand how and what is going on. In order to understand what's going on under the hood, you will literally have to open the hood, the bonnet, and take it apart. So that's the drawback, or rather that's the advantage of computer science over other engineering disciplines. As in, all you need to know, or all you need to sort of dive deeper, is available right in front of you in form of your computer system. You don't have to take a screwdriver and put it apart. You just have to, dive deeper, look into the configuration files, look into the source code, look into, tinker, make changes, compile, recompile, do stuff to it. After you have, taken a few bolts apart, it will stop working, and getting it to work again will be an interesting challenge, so to speak. Yeah. Shyam?
Next question. Hello.
Why is NVIDIA not contributing to Linux like AMD to make the platform better? Well, their personal choice. Of course, everybody has the freedom of doing what they want to do. That's something that we should probably ask NVIDIA. if you want to sort of know what the community thinks of it, there is a video of Linus Torvalds rather rudely, flipping the bird to NVIDIA. So let's not go there. Anyways, what's the next one? That's all. Okay, cool. It's been nice talking to you people, and hope to see you soon.
Okay,
Shall we
bye.
start the podcast? Yeah. Tarun, you just wanted to say something? Okay. Goodbye. Nice meeting you. Nice talking to you guys.
Goodbye, Bhaiya.
Come join one of the channels.
Thanks a lot.
Let's connect
Hello,
on
yeah.
any of the platforms and, well, learn with each other. Goodbye. Good night. All the best.